The message traveled across the stars for 200 years before it reached the small blue planet. It was a simple thing. Numbers. Patterns. A greeting written in the language of mathematics that any thinking species could understand. The Galactic Concord had sent this same message to 1,000 worlds across 3 spiral arms of the galaxy. Every time, they received an answer. Ambassador Vethkai remembered each first contact. He was old. Even by the standards of his long-lived species, his gray skin had grown pale over the centuries, and his 4 eyes had seen empires rise and fall. He had welcomed 62 species into the Concord during his lifetime. Some had answered with joy. Some had answered with fear. Some had tried to fight. But all of them had answered. The Concord was patient. They waited for Earth's response. 1 year passed, then 5, then 10. The council met in the great chamber on the Concord homeworld. 12 elder species sat in a circle of floating platforms, each representing billions of lives across thousands of worlds. They had ruled this part of the galaxy for 50,000 years. They had seen everything. They knew everything. Or so they believed. The humans have not responded, said High Counselor Morthax. He was a creature of sharp angles and hard plates, his species known for their impatience. We should send a second message. We have sent 17 messages, Vethkai replied calmly. They have received all of them. Their radio telescopes point toward our transmission sources. They discuss our signals in their scientific communities. They know we are here. Then why do they not answer? Vethkai had no answer. This had never happened before. The youngest member of the council spoke up. Her name was Salith, and she represented a species that had joined the Concord only 3,000 years ago. Perhaps they are simply primitive. Our records show they are a fractured species. Hundreds of nations, thousands of languages. They fight among themselves constantly. Perhaps they cannot agree on a response. Several council members made sounds of agreement. This explanation was comfortable. It was easy to understand. But Vethkai did not agree. He had studied humanity for decades. He had watched their television signals, listened to their radio broadcasts, and analyzed their internet communications. What he saw disturbed him in ways he could not fully explain. They landed machines on their neighboring planet within 50 years of achieving powered flight, he said quietly. They split the atom and chose not to destroy themselves. They connected their entire species through an electronic network in a single generation. They are not primitive. Then what are they? Morthax demanded. I do not know. That is what concerns me. The decades continued to pass. Earth grew more advanced. Their telescopes became more powerful. Their understanding of the universe deepened. They discovered the basic principles of faster-than-light travel. They built experimental engines. They launched more missions to their moon and their neighboring worlds. And still, they did not respond. The Concord watched everything. Their observation stations had orbited beyond the edge of Earth's solar system for centuries. They saw humanity's achievements. They saw their failures. They saw their wars and their peace treaties. They saw their art and their science. Vethkai noticed something that others did not. The humans had created new satellites. Hundreds of them. Thousands. Many served obvious purposes. Communication. Observation. Navigation. But some were different. They were dark. They were silent. They did not broadcast, and they did not respond to signals. What are those? He asked his analysts. Unknown, Ambassador. The humans call them research platforms. They do not discuss their purpose publicly. Vethkai felt something cold in his chest. His species had a word for this feeling. It translated roughly as, the fear of prey that discovers it is being watched by a predator it cannot see. He brought his concerns to the council. 60 years, he said. 60 years of silence. No species in our recorded history has ever remained silent this long. I believe we must consider the possibility that their silence is not weakness. It is strategy. Morthax laughed. It was an ugly sound. Strategy? They are children playing with fire. Their fastest ships cannot even leave their own system. They have no weapons that could threaten a single Concord vessel. What strategy could they possibly have? I do not know, and that is precisely what frightens me. The council debated for many hours. In the end, they reached a decision. Humanity would be brought into the Concord, whether they wished it or not. Their resources were valuable. Their planet was rich. And most importantly, their silence was an insult to the natural order of things. Lesser species answered when greater species called. This was the law of the galaxy. This was how things had always been. We will send an envoy fleet, Morthax announced. 200 warships. They will deliver our terms directly. Humanity will submit to evaluation, disarmament, and cultural reformation under Concord law. If they comply, they will be welcomed as members. If they resist, he did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Vethkai stood alone as the council members departed. He stared at the holographic image of Earth floating in the center of the chamber. Such a small world. Such a young species. They had existed for barely 300,000 years. They had achieved technology only in the last few centuries. And yet, something about the way they watched the stars made Vethkai uneasy. There was a patience in their silence that reminded him of predators from his homeworld. Creatures that could wait for days without moving. Creatures that let their prey come to them. "What are you waiting for?" he whispered to the image of Earth. "What do you know that we do not?" The blue planet gave no answer. It simply continued to spin in the darkness, wrapped in clouds and mystery. Far away, in a bunker deep beneath a mountain on Earth, a general sat in front of a screen that showed the approaching Concord fleet. 200 ships, his aide reported. They will arrive in 6 months. The general nodded slowly. His face showed no fear. His eyes held something that looked almost like satisfaction. 60 years, he said quietly. We have been watching them for 60 years. We know their weapons. We know their shields. We know their tactics. And they know nothing about us. He picked up a phone and spoke 2 words. Wake them. Across the solar system, in the darkness between worlds, machines that had slept for decades began to stir. Earth remained silent, but it was not sleeping. The fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 200 warships, each one was a kilometer long, covered in weapons that could crack continents and shields that could withstand nuclear fire. They moved in perfect formation, a wall of metal and death that had conquered 100 worlds. High Marshal Torvan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Judgment. He was tall even by the standards of his species, his body covered in ceremonial armor that had been worn by his ancestors for 10,000 years. He had personally overseen the integration of 15 species into the Concord. Some had surrendered peacefully. Others had not. The result was always the same. Begin scanning, he ordered. His officers worked quickly. Data flowed across their screens. Torvan watched with growing confusion. Report, he demanded. High Marshal. There are no orbital defenses. No warships. No military stations. Their most advanced vessels are simple transport craft, designed for travel within their own system. Their weapons are, the officer hesitated, primitive. Chemical explosives. Nuclear devices. Nothing that could penetrate our weakest shields. Torvan felt a moment of disappointment. He had expected more from the species that had dared to ignore the Concord for 60 years. Instead, he found a divided world with ancient technology. What about those satellites we detected? The silent ones? Still dark, High Marshal. No power signatures. No weapon systems. They appear to be debris or abandoned research equipment. Torvan made a sound of contempt. They ignored our messages because they had nothing to say. They are not defiant. They are simply too primitive to understand their situation. He activated the fleet-wide communication system. His voice echoed across 200 ships. Attention, people of Earth. I am High Marshal Torvan of the Galactic Concord. Your world has been selected for integration into our civilization. You will submit to evaluation, disarmament, and cultural reformation. Your governments will surrender all authority to Concord administrators. Your military forces will be disbanded. Compliance is not optional. You have one planetary rotation to respond. He ended the transmission and waited. One rotation passed. Earth did not respond. Torvon contacted the Council. They continue to ignore us. Even with our fleet in their system, they say nothing. Demonstrate our power, Morthax ordered. Show them what happens to species that defy the Concord. Understood. What is your target preference? There was a brief discussion among the Council members. Vethkai argued for patience, but his voice was drowned out by those who demanded action. Their moon, Morthax said finally. Destroy it. It has no population. It will serve as a warning without unnecessary casualties. Once they see what we can do, they will submit. Torvon smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. With pleasure. The fleet repositioned itself. 100 warships aimed their main weapons at Earth's moon. The humans called it Luna. It had hung in their sky since their species first looked upward. It controlled their tides. It lit their nights. Poets had written about it. Lovers had walked beneath it. Astronauts had planted flags on its surface. In 3 minutes, it was gone. The weapons fired in sequence, each beam powerful enough to melt mountains. They struck the moon again and again, cracking its surface, shattering its core. The ancient rock broke apart, fragmenting into a million pieces that scattered across the sky. From Earth, the destruction was visible to everyone. Day became bright as the weapons fired. Night became chaos as debris rained down from above. Tidal waves rose from the oceans. Earthquakes shook the land. 12 million people died in the first hours as the planet reeled from the loss of its only natural satellite. And still, Earth did not respond. Torvon waited a full rotation. Then another. He expected panic. He expected surrender. He expected desperate pleas for mercy. He received silence. What is wrong with these creatures? He demanded. Do they not understand what we have done? Do they not see our power? His science officers studied the data carefully. They understand, High Marshal. Their communications show widespread knowledge of what happened. But they are not discussing surrender. They are organizing. Organizing for what? Unknown. Their governments are coordinating. Their militaries are moving to defensive positions. But they are not preparing to attack us. They appear to be preparing for something else. Torvon dismissed the report. What could primitives possibly prepare that would matter against the might of the Concord? Send landing forces to their major cities. We will occupy their world and force them to respond. 12 hours later, the first Concord soldiers landed on Earth. They expected frightened civilians and confused military forces. They expected quick submission and minimal resistance. They were wrong. The first transport ship landed in what the humans called Europe. Its doors opened, and 200 Concord soldiers marched out in perfect formation. They wore powered armor and carried weapons that could level buildings. They had conquered dozens of worlds. They had never been defeated. The plaza where they landed was empty. The buildings around them seemed abandoned. The soldiers spread out. Scanners searching for life signs. They found nothing. Then the explosions began. Bombs buried beneath the streets detonated in precise sequence. Buildings collapsed onto the soldiers. Snipers fired from hidden positions, their primitive bullets finding the gaps in Concord armor that classified intelligence had identified decades ago. Civilians who had seemed harmless produced weapons and attacked with savage fury. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it ended, every Concord soldier was dead. Across the planet, the same story repeated. Landing forces were ambushed. Supply lines were cut. Soldiers who expected easy conquest found themselves in a nightmare of guerrilla warfare against an enemy that refused to surrender. Torvon received the reports with growing disbelief. How is this possible? Their weapons are primitive. Their training is inferior. How are they defeating our soldiers? His tactical officer looked pale. They know our tactics, High Marshal. They know our armor weaknesses. They know our communication frequencies. It is as if they have studied us for decades. Torvon felt a cold chill run through his body. He remembered Vethkai's warning about the silent satellites. The decades of observation, the strange patience of a species that had never once responded to their messages. For the first time, he wondered if the Council had made a terrible mistake. A communication came through from the planet's surface. A human woman appeared on his screen. She wore military uniform, and her face was covered in blood and dirt. Behind her, Torvald could see the wreckage of a Concorde transport ship. "You destroyed our moon," she said. Her voice was calm. Too calm. 12 million people died because you wanted to frighten us. Surrender now, and no more will die, Torvald replied. The woman smiled. It was the most terrifying expression Torvald had ever seen. "We have a message for your council." "Then speak." "Not yet. Soon. When we are ready." The transmission ended. Torvald stared at the blank screen. In his chest, something that felt very much like fear began to grow. Far out in the darkness of space, beyond the edge of the solar system, the silent satellites finally began to move. The resistance on Earth grew stronger with each passing day. Conquered soldiers controlled nothing outside their landing zones. Every patrol was an ambush. Every supply convoy was a target. The humans fought with weapons that should have been useless against advanced armor. Yet somehow they knew exactly where to strike. Torvald had lost 3,000 soldiers in 2 weeks. His ground commanders begged for reinforcement or retreat. But the High Marshal refused both options. The Concorde did not retreat. The Concorde did not fail. He ordered his intelligence officers to capture human prisoners. He needed answers. He needed to understand how a primitive species could cause such damage. They brought him a woman. She was young by human standards, perhaps 30 years old. Her uniform identified her as a soldier. Though she carried no rank that the Concorde recognized, she had been wounded in the capture. Blood stained her clothes. But her eyes showed no fear. Torvald studied her through the cell's transparent wall. "You will tell me how you know our weaknesses." "Will I?" She sounded almost amused. "You have no choice. Our interrogation methods are very effective." "I know. We have studied them extensively." Torvald felt that chill again. "What do you mean?" The woman leaned forward. 60 years ago, your Concord sent us a message. An invitation. You expected us to respond like every other species. To reveal ourselves, our languages, our cultures, our fears, our weaknesses. You wanted us to open our hearts to you. It is the way of first contact. All species before us," she interrupted. "Yes, we noticed. We studied every species that joined your Concorde. We found the records. The Valeth responded to your invitation with joy. 20 years later, their homeworld was strip-mined, and their population was scattered across labor camps. The Orun responded with caution. You punished them for their hesitation by taking their children to raise in conquered schools. They forgot their own language within 3 generations. Torvald said nothing. These were not secrets exactly, but they were truths that the Concorde did not discuss openly. "The 17 silent moons," she continued. "Do you remember them? A civilization of artists and philosophers. They asked to remain independent. They wanted only peace. Your council destroyed every moon they inhabited. 4 billion lives. Because they asked to be left alone. Those were necessary actions for the greater stability of Seplusion. They were crimes." Her voice cut through his justification like a blade. "And we saw them. We intercepted your communications. We decoded your languages. We studied your history, your tactics, your technology. Every signal you ever sent, we captured and analyzed." She stood up, despite her wounds. "You asked why we never responded to your invitation. The answer is simple. We did not trust you. So we watched. We learned. We prepared. Prepared for what? You have no fleet. No weapons that can challenge us." The woman laughed. It was not a sound of humor. It was something darker. "High Marshal, do you know where your observation stations are? The ones you placed at the edge of our system?" Torvald frowned. "They are classified positions. Station Theta 7 is hidden in the Kuiper Belt, behind a cluster of ice formations. Station Omega 1-2 orbits our Sun at twice Neptune's distance. Station Delta 3 is buried inside an asteroid near Mars. She tilted her head. Should I continue? He stared at her. How do you know this? We found them 20 years ago. We did not destroy them. We did not board them. We simply watched them, watching us. And we made sure they saw only what we wanted them to see. Torvan's blood ran cold. Your scans showed no fleet, the woman said. That is because we built our fleet where your stations could not detect it. In the deep places, inside the ice moons of Jupiter, beneath the storms of Saturn, in the cold spaces between stars where your sensors never looked. She pressed her hand against the cell wall. Right now, at this very moment, 40 warships are powering up. Ships built with technology we developed in secret. Engines your scientists have never seen. Weapons designed specifically to destroy Concorde vessels. We know your shield frequencies. We know your hull compositions. We know exactly how to kill you. Torvan activated his communication device. All ships, raise defensive positions immediately. Prepare for. The woman shook her head. Too late. The lights flickered. Through the flagship's windows, Torvan saw something that stopped his heart. Ships appeared. Not from far away. Not approaching at visible speed. They simply existed where they had not existed a moment before. 40 vessels, each one smaller than his warships but shaped unlike anything in conquered records. They were black. They were angular. They seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. No engine signatures, an officer reported, his voice shaking. No approach vector. They did not travel here. They just appeared. Impossible, Torvan whispered. On the planet's surface, across every frequency, a transmission began. It was broadcast in perfect Concorde standard, the official language of the galaxy's rulers. A human voice spoke, calm and cold. This is Earth. For 60 years, you waited for us to respond. Here is our response. The screens on every Concorde ship showed the same image. A room filled with humans in military uniform. Behind them, walls covered in data. Images of every conquered species. Maps of every conquered world. Records of every secret the Council had tried to hide. We know who you are, the voice continued. We know what you have done. You call yourselves the Galactic Concorde. You claim to bring order and civilization to the galaxy, but you are conquerors, slavers, destroyers of cultures. The image changed. Ships burning, planets dying, species being led away in chains. The Valeth, the Oran, the 17 silent moons, the Kethrani, the Pale Wanderers. 137 species destroyed or enslaved over 50,000 years. We have the records. We have the evidence. And now, everyone will see it. Torvan felt his legs weaken. What is this? The woman in the cell smiled. This is why we were silent. Not because we were afraid. Not because we were primitive. We were gathering testimony. The broadcast continued across the galaxy. Every species under Concorde control received the same message. Every hidden crime was exposed. Every buried atrocity was brought into the light. And in the space around Earth, the human fleet began to move. You destroyed our moon, the broadcast said. 12 million innocent people died so that you could demonstrate your power. You believed we would fear you. You believed we would submit. You were wrong. The human ships formed a circle around the Concorde fleet. Their weapons powered up, glowing with energy that sensors could not identify. We were never afraid of you. We were afraid of what we would become if we answered too soon. We were afraid that we would rush to battle without understanding our enemy. We were afraid that we would win the war and become the thing we fought against. The woman in the cell pressed her hand against the wall one final time. 60 years gave us time to prepare. 60 years gave us time to learn. And 60 years gave us time to decide exactly what kind of justice we would deliver. The broadcast ended, and the war began. High Marshal Torvan had commanded fleets for 2 centuries. He had fought in 37 engagements across the galaxy. He had never lost a battle. He had never even come close to losing a battle. In 11 minutes, everything he knew about war became meaningless. All ships, attack formation Delta, he commanded. Target the nearest human vessels, full weapons release. 200 Concord warships opened fire. Beams of plasma and streams of missiles crossed the void toward the human fleet. The same weapons that had shattered Earth's moon now reached toward these strange black ships. The human vessels did not dodge. They did not raise shields. They simply continued forward. The weapons struck. Energy dispersed across the black hulls. Missiles exploded against them. And the human ships kept coming, completely undamaged. Impact confirmed, an officer reported, his voice trembling. No effect. Sir, our weapons are having no effect. Increase power. All batteries focus on a single target. 100 ships turned their weapons on one human vessel. The amount of firepower released could have destroyed a small moon. The beams connected, wrapping the human ship in fire and light. When the light faded, the ship was still there, still moving, still undamaged. What are their hulls made of? Torvan demanded. Unknown, sir. Our sensors cannot analyze the material. It does not match any element or compound in our databases. The human fleet reached optimal firing range. They did not form attack patterns. They did not coordinate their movements. Each ship simply aimed and fired. The first shot struck Torvan's lead destroyer. One beam of white light. It lasted less than a second. The destroyer, a ship that had survived 100 battles, simply came apart. Its shields did not flicker. Its armor did not slow the beam. The vessel split into fragments and exploded. Evasive maneuvers, Torvan screamed. His fleet scattered. Ships that had fought in perfect formation for centuries now fled in panic. It did not matter. The human weapons found them anyway. Each shot was perfect. Each shot killed. The Concorde ships tried to escape to faster-than-light travel. Their engines activated. Space began to twist around them. And then the human ships did something impossible. They simply appeared next to the fleeing Concorde vessels. No travel, no transition. One moment they were behind, the next they were in front. They fired at point-blank range, destroying ships before they could escape. How are they doing that? Torvan whispered. His science officer was crying. I do not know, sir. They are breaking physics. They should not be able to move like that. Nothing can move like that. But humanity had spent 60 years in silence. 60 years of watching. 60 years of learning. 60 years of building technology that the Concorde could not imagine. They had not just matched the Concorde, they had surpassed them in ways that seemed like magic. The battle was not a battle, it was an execution. Ship after ship died. The void filled with debris and bodies. Conquered officers who had never known defeat screamed final messages to families they would never see again. Explosions lit the darkness like terrible stars. Torvan watched his fleet die. 200 warships. The pride of the Concorde. The force that had conquered 100 worlds. In 11 minutes, they were gone. Only his flagship remained. The Eternal Judgment floated alone in a sea of wreckage. Its weapons were offline. Its engines were dead. It was surrounded by human ships that could destroy it with a single shot, but they did not fire. Instead, a human vessel moved closer. A small craft detached and flew toward the flagship. Torvan's security officers raised their weapons, but he waved them down. Resistance was pointless now. The humans boarded through an airlock. A squad of soldiers entered first, their weapons ready. Then came an officer. A woman with gray in her hair and steel in her eyes. She wore no armor, she carried no weapon. Hi, Marshal Torvan, she said in perfect Concorde standard. My name is Admiral Chen. I am here to discuss terms. Torvan stared at her. You want to negotiate? You have destroyed my fleet. You could kill me in a moment. What is there to negotiate? Your life. And the survival of your council. He did not understand. Why would you spare us? We destroyed your moon. We killed millions of your people. We came to conquer your world. Admiral Chen walked toward him slowly. Her footsteps echoed in the silence of the bridge. Every Concord officer watched her with fear in their eyes. Because we are not like you, she said. We do not destroy species to make examples. We do not murder billions to demonstrate power. We are human. And despite everything you have done to us, we choose to be better than you. She handed him a small crystal. It glowed with stored data. This contains evidence. 60 years of intercepted communications. Records of every crime your Concord has committed. We are broadcasting it across the galaxy right now. But this copy is for you. You will take it back to your council. You will show them what we know. Torvald took the crystal. His hands were shaking. And then what? And then your council will have a choice. They can face justice for their crimes. They can release the species they have enslaved. They can disband their empire peacefully. She paused. Or they can refuse. And we will come for them. You have only 40 ships. Admiral Chen smiled. It was not a cruel smile. But it was not a kind one either. We have been building for 60 years, High Marshal. Do you really think 40 ships is all we have? He remembered the stations they had found, the secret installations, the decades of hidden preparation. He looked at the technology on these human ships, technology that made the Concord seem like children playing with toys. Why? He asked quietly. Why did you wait so long? You could have destroyed us immediately. You could have attacked before we ever reached your system. Admiral Chen turned to look at the wreckage floating outside the windows. The debris of 200 ships. The bodies of thousands of soldiers. Because we needed to be sure, she said. We needed to know exactly what you were. We needed to gather evidence that would convince every species in the galaxy. And we needed to give you a chance to prove us wrong. A chance? We hoped you would be different. We hoped your council would be wise. We hoped you would send diplomats instead of warships. We hoped you would ask instead of demand. Her voice grew cold. Instead, you destroyed our moon and killed 12 million people to frighten us. She walked back toward the airlock. Go home, High Marshal. Tell your council what you have seen. Tell them what we know. And tell them that Earth is watching. What if they do not listen? Admiral Chen stopped at the door. She did not turn around. Then the silence ends. And the war truly begins. She left. The human ships withdrew. And Torvald sat alone on his ruined bridge, holding a crystal that contained the death of an empire. He gave the order to return home. The journey would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks to think about everything he had seen. 3 weeks to wonder what would happen when the council viewed the evidence. 3 weeks to realize that the galaxy was about to change forever. The Great Chamber had never been so quiet. 12 elder species sat on their floating platforms, staring at the holographic display in the center of the room. High Marshal Torvald stood below them, his armor stained and his spirit broken. The crystal's contents played for all to see. 60 years of secrets, 60 years of lies, 60 years of crimes that the council had believed would remain hidden forever. This cannot be authentic, High Counselor Morthax said, but his voice lacked conviction. The humans have fabricated this evidence to turn our subjects against us. It is authentic, Torvald replied. I verified it myself. Every communication, every order, every record. They intercepted everything we ever transmitted. They decoded every language we ever used. They watched us for 60 years, and we never knew. Ambassador Vethkai closed his 4 eyes. He had warned them. He had told them that humanity's silence was not weakness. No one had listened. How much of this broadcast have they transmitted? Asked Salith, her voice small and frightened. All of it. To every system, every planet, every species under Concord control has seen the evidence. The chamber erupted in chaos. Council members shouted at each other, blamed each other, accused each other of the very crimes displayed in the evidence. 50,000 years of unity collapsed in minutes. Vethkai remained silent. He watched his colleagues tear at each other like animals, and he felt nothing but exhaustion. He had served the Concorde for centuries. He had believed in its mission. He had told himself that the occasional cruelty was necessary for the greater good, but seeing it all displayed together, every act of genocide and slavery and cultural destruction, he could no longer pretend. The Concorde was not a force for civilization. It was a machine of conquest that dressed itself in noble language. "What are the humans demanding?" he asked quietly. The chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to Torvan. "They have transmitted a message to this council directly. I was instructed to deliver it when the evidence finished playing." "Show us." The holographic display changed. A human appeared. She was older, with white hair and a face lined by years of difficult decisions. She wore civilian clothes, not military uniform. "I am President Martinez of the United Earth Government. I am speaking on behalf of humanity and on behalf of every species your Concorde has wronged over 50,000 years. She paused. Her eyes seemed to look directly at each council member. "You have seen the evidence. You know what you have done. The galaxy now knows what you have done. There is no hiding anymore. There is no pretending. Your crimes are exposed for all to see." Morthax shifted uncomfortably on his platform. "What does she want?" "We do not want revenge," President Martinez continued as if she had heard him. "We do not want war. We do not want to become the thing we fought against. But we do want justice. And we want freedom." The display showed a list: names of species, names of worlds, account of lives lost and cultures destroyed. "You will release every species you have enslaved. You will return every world you have taken. You will compensate the descendants of those you have wronged. And you will face trial for your crimes against the galaxy." "Impossible," Morthax shouted. "We will never submit to judgment from primitives who—" "I am not finished." The president's voice cut through his protest like a blade. "If you refuse these terms, know this. Our fleet is larger than the 40 ships you faced. Our weapons are more powerful than anything you have seen, and we have spent 60 years preparing for this moment." She leaned forward. "We did not respond to your invitation because we did not trust you. We were right not to trust you. But we hoped you would prove us wrong. We hoped you would send diplomats instead of warships. You chose war. You destroyed our moon and killed 12 million innocent people." Her voice hardened. "Do not mistake our mercy for weakness. We spared your High Marshal because we wanted peace. We gave you this chance because we believe in redemption. But if you refuse justice, if you continue to enslave and destroy, we will end you." The message paused. President Martinez looked tired now. Sad. "We did not want to be conquerors. We did not want to be warriors. We wanted to meet the stars with open hands and open hearts. You took that dream from us. You turned us into something we never wanted to be, and for that, we will never forgive you." She straightened. "But we can move forward. We can build something new. A galaxy where no species is slave to another. Where no world burns because its people asked for freedom. Where the strong protect the weak, instead of consuming them. These are our terms. You have 1 standard month to respond. We will be watching." The message ended. Silence filled the chamber. 12 elder species looked at each other, and for the first time in 50,000 years, they felt fear. "We must fight," Morthax said. But his voice was hollow. "We cannot submit to. We cannot win." Vethkai finally spoke. His voice was old and tired. "I tried to tell you. 60 years ago, I told you their silence was dangerous. You did not listen. Now our fleet is destroyed. Our crimes are exposed, and our subjects are already rising against us." He was right. Across the Concorde's territory, rebellions were erupting. The Valeth had seized control of their occupied world and expelled the Concorde garrison. The Orin had sealed their borders and declared independence. The descendants of the 17 Silent Moons had attacked a Concorde supply station. 50,000 years of empire was collapsing in days. "What do we do?" Saleth whispered. Vethkai looked at the empty space where the human message had been displayed. He thought about all the species they had destroyed, all the cultures they had erased. All the crimes they had committed in the name of order and civilization. We accept their terms, he said. We face justice. And we pray that they are more merciful than we deserve. Morthax lunged from his platform. I will never bow to. He never finished the sentence. The other council members turned on him. Species that had been allies for millennia suddenly remembered old grievances, old crimes, old betrayals. The unity of the Concord shattered in violence and accusations. By the time order was restored, Morthax was dead. 3 other council members had fled. The remainder looked at each other with fear and distrust. The Galactic Concord was finished, not because humanity had destroyed it with weapons, but because humanity had exposed the truth. And truth, once spoken, could not be unspoken. 1 month later, the first Concord leaders stood trial for crimes against sentient species. The trials were broadcast across the galaxy. Every atrocity was documented. Every victim was named. Justice, delayed for 50,000 years, finally arrived. Ambassador Vethkai was among those who testified. He confessed his own crimes. He accepted his punishment. And in his final statement, he said something that would be remembered for generations. We thought we were the masters of the galaxy. We thought our power made us right. We were wrong. A young species with primitive technology defeated us, not with weapons but with patience and truth. They watched us. They learned who we really were. And when the time came, they showed the galaxy the truth about its rulers. He looked at the camera, knowing that humans would see his words. You asked us once if we were worthy of first contact. We proved that we were not. Perhaps in time, we can become better. But that is for the future to decide. The trial ended. The sentences were delivered. The former rulers of the galaxy faced justice. And far away, on a small blue planet with a shattered moon, humanity received one final message from the Concord. It was a formal response to their original invitation, sent 60 years too late. We respectfully decline your terms for integration into the Galactic Concord. Below the official response, Ambassador Vethkai had added a personal note. You were right to remain silent. You were right to watch. And you were right to wait until you understood what we truly were. I hope someday you will meet species worthy of your trust. Until then, may your silence protect you. President Martinez read the message. She looked out at the night sky, where Luna had once hung full and bright. Now only debris remained. A permanent reminder of the price humanity had paid for its caution. Record this response, she said. An aide activated a communication device. To the former Galactic Concord. Your apology is noted. Your request for mercy has been received. We will continue to watch. We will continue to wait. And we will continue to hope that the galaxy learns from your mistakes. She paused. This is Earth. Our silence has ended. We are listening now. But we choose very carefully who we answer. The message was sent. The communication device deactivated. And in the vast silence between the stars, humanity waited for whatever would come next. They were very good at waiting.